Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's recording of Imposter Women. This is the show that is here to tell you that you are not an imposter. Imposter Women is here to help you tackle your life and business goals unapologetically and with confidence. I'm your host, Jessie Linder-Gallo, coming at you today with a solo episode and a very important topic. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about goals. Mel talked to you a lot about goal setting back in episode 13, where she described using a SMART goal framework and how to visualize your goals, how to really make them reality. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly encourage you to go back to that episode and listen to that first. So hit pause, go listen to episode 13, and then come back and join me here on this episode 19 about goal check-in. If you have listened to that episode, you have mastered setting your goals, you have them ready to go, then you're ready to join me for this episode. So let's dive in today as we do a goal check-in. So I'm going to try and break this down into just a few steps to make this pretty simple. We're going to break this into 6 steps today to really check in on our goals. So one thing that I have come to realize over the years is that when I set goals at work in my W-2 life, we have a system, right? We set them, we set benchmarks for them, we set data around them, we check in around them. We have staff meetings where we're talking about them. We have quarterly planning, we have annual retreats. Our goals are in front of us. And oddly enough, for whatever reason, when most of us set goals at home or for our personal businesses or side hustles, that system is just not there in the same way. And so naturally, I think for many of us, we have more success with our goals at work than we do the things that we really want to accomplish in our business, in our side hustle, or even in our lives. So, I want to talk you through today just a framework that you can use to start to implement a system with your goals so that you can really make them reality. So, let's dive in. First thing I want you to do is to get your goals out physically in front of you. If you have them in a digital format, print them out, bring them up on your computer. If they're on your wall somewhere, get in front of that wall. Can you see them? Ask yourself this question: can I see my goals? Where are you keeping them? And how often are you checking in on them? If you don't have good habits around goal tracking, today is the perfect day to build some. So, in starting this check in, the first step is to get them back out. So, here's an example. These are some of my personal goals for the year. I put them into a format. I just use Canva, which I can link to in the show notes. A great little design software. Make them pretty for myself. If it's visually pleasing, I am 10 times more likely to look at it. So I give it some nice colors, some nice fonts, and I lay out my goals in categories for the year. For my husband and I's business for Gallo Family Homes, we are starting to get into a rhythm of goal setting now. So right now our goals live on some gigantic Post-it notes that are in the closet next to me in our office. So for video, I'll go ahead and turn that. You can see them in there, and they are hanging on that wall. So that we see them when we are sitting in here in the office working, when we go to the printer, when we go to put a receipt in a file, everything we do for the business, we walk by those Post-it notes. So those are where those goals are living right now. I do think it's nice to have a digital format just to keep better track of things and be able to save past goals and kind of look back once you get into the future. So I will type those out at some point for our business just to have them. But those are some ways that you could physically get your goals in front of them. Think about where you're setting them, where you're putting them. Later in this episode, we're going to talk about more frequent check-ins. So we're going to come back to this idea, but start thinking about where your goals live, maybe where they shouldn't live, and where you might want to move them to as we get into this. So hit pause if you don't have them in front of you. Now's a great time to pull them out. I'll be right here while you hit pause. Okay, so step 2, it's time to check our progress. So this is a really important step with any goal check-in. I think sometimes what we want to do is not look backwards because we are ashamed or for many different reasons. But something Mel taught us about in that goal setting episode is that we need goals that are achievable and measurable. There's a great quote out there. I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's what gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets done. Let me say that a little better. So it's time to measure the progress and check in with ourselves. So the first thing you want to do is record any data or metrics around your goals. So some of your goals are going to be more quantitative in nature, and this is going to be a little bit easier. So you may have a goal around increasing your household budget. You may have a revenue goal or a sales goal for your side hustle or business. Those are going to be really simple goals to pull the numbers for and put them on paper. So I would suggest using a spreadsheet of some kind is a great way to do that and list out any of your metrics tied to your goals. When I list them out, I'll do a column for the goal and a column for the metric. So it's really easy to see, okay, which goal is tied to which number. Sometimes a certain metric may actually be a measure of multiple goals, and that's great. That's okay too. So you can kind of list multiple goals next to that particular metric. And then over time, you can track that. So if you are tracking a goal over the course of a year, you may enter that metric into your spreadsheet weekly, monthly, quarterly, really just depends on what the number is, how feasible it is to track in smaller increments versus larger, and how often you're checking in with yourself. So maybe it's a sales goal. Maybe you are checking in on your sales monthly, and versus you might have a number that you're tracking around sales calls. So maybe you have a weekly sales call number that's helping you predict if you're hitting your monthly sales. Put those in a spreadsheet so you can really see them and they can be tangible and visible to you. I recommend doing this along the way, like I was just describing, and utilizing scorecards or goal tracking sheets are a great way to do that. It makes check ins a little less overwhelming. So if you do, say, a quarterly check in, which is what I do, then you're not trying to go back over 3 months of numbers and it's not taking you hours and hours and hours to prepare to even check in with yourself because that can just be really overwhelming. So use some tracking sheets. For those qualitative goals, those goals that aren't numbers based, go ahead and write down any progress you've made. Go ahead and put down, maybe you have a goal around increasing how you feel about something, about changing a perception. Maybe you have a goal that is a product you're trying to create. So it's not a number of products you're trying to create, but it is a project you're doing to create one new product. Well, then let's go ahead and write down any progress we've made. So we've we've developed an idea, we've sketched out what the product's going to look like, we've started to get quotes on what it's going to take to produce that product or pull together numbers. Go ahead and make a bulleted list of the success you're having with that goal. So whether it's a numbers goal, a quantitative or a qualitative goal, go ahead and record that progress. The next thing I want you to do is to pause and look at that record you just created of your progress and celebrate your wins. I know we talk about this a lot on this show, but seriously, hit pause for a second. Have you made progress that you're proud of, big or small? Then pause. Great. Let's find a way to soak that in for a moment and just celebrate it. There's so many ways to celebrate, and I would recommend having a repertoire or a list of treats for yourself or ways to celebrate so you're not trying to just come up with them in the moment. This is a real weakness of mine, so I'm preaching to myself when I say this. I often have a hard time figuring out how to celebrate, and then I just move on and I never celebrate that win. So this is something we can get better at together. So it might look like going to dinner with a friend or your spouse just to cheers and say, I'm really proud of this. Cheer for yourself. Maybe just take a moment and go outside and just like hoot and holler for yourself. Pin it up on your wall. Maybe print something out, draw something. Was it something tangible that you can look at, or you can print out that picture and really celebrate that success? Post about it online, share it with your community. Maybe your Instagram or your Facebook is a great place to tell either friends and family or clients about what you have done and have them help you celebrate that win. Call a supporter and tell them about it. Is your best friend your biggest cheerleader in this business or this goal that you're trying to accomplish? Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's someone in a mastermind group that you're a part of, or it's someone you met at a networking event that you've been swapping progress with around your goals. Call them, talk about it. They're going to be able to really lift you up and help you celebrate that goal. Maybe it's something simple. Maybe it's some self-care. Maybe that celebration is taking a bubble bath. Maybe it's going outside and just like breathing deeply for a minute and saying some affirmations. Whatever that looks like, we're going to celebrate. I think really documenting the success and being able to look back is also powerful later. So celebrate now and then keep that document so that when you need some extra motivation and you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I am just never going to hit this revenue number that I want to hit. It's not possible. I'm not going to get there. All those negative self-talks are coming into your head. You can say, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at the facts. Actually, I've been hitting my sales goals every quarter for 5 quarters. I am going to hit this revenue. Let's figure out ways to lift myself up because here's the proof. I'm doing it. I'm going in the right direction. So let's definitely keep that document. Okay, so at this point, we have gotten our goals out. We know what they are. We're looking at them. We've checked our progress so far. Now I want to actually do something that's going to feel maybe out of step with the process. So many people, I think, would try to just take the next step, be setting their next goals, setting their next steps. But I actually want to have you pause for a minute here and think about your why. So let's go back to your vision. Let's go back to the reason this goal was created in the first place. Why did you set this goal? What do you want to happen that made you set this goal? So an example might be, instead of thinking, Mel gave this example back in episode 13, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money to make ends meet. I'm not going to be able to make the money I want to make. Instead, think about how you're creating value in other people's lives with your product or service. So the why might have been that you were trying to visualize yourself changing lives with your business. Maybe that's why you set that goal. I want you to ask yourself a few questions. First of all, does the why still excite you? Is this goal still moving you towards your ultimate vision? Is this goal still moving you towards a vision of helping people thrive in whatever area you're trying to create? Does it still move you towards your vision of financial freedom for your family? Does it still move you towards the vision you have to solve this big problem in the world with a product you're creating? Whatever that big vision is that you have, is this still moving you in the right direction? I want to say beware here, little warning, because I think sometimes the fact that maybe we haven't made progress on a goal we've hoped for, that can turn into a little bit of embarrassment. And I don't want you to mistake feeling embarrassed that you're not making progress in the timeline that you originally set for this being a bad goal. That goal might still be an excellent goal that is serving you and your vision really well, but it might just be harder than you thought it would be. And that's okay. Or maybe there's some issues that have come up that we need to address. So don't use this step as an excuse to toss out a really viable or important goal. Instead, use this step as a chance to get re-excited, reinvigorated by your why and your reasoning. Now, on the other hand, there may be goals that aren't serving you anymore. Things have changed in the landscape, in your life, in your business, and for whatever reason, you may find that a goal is actually not the direction you're going anymore. It might actually not be leading you towards your vision. So that might be a goal that it's time to either cross out, time to drop it, or to pivot it and change it. This is a great opportunity to do that too. Also, just want you to remember that goals should be rocks, not pebbles. They're going to be big. So sometimes they are going to be tough, but they're going to be worth it at the end. So as long as they're aligned, it's going to be worth it to fight through achieving that goal. So recenter yourself on your why. Remind yourself of the importance and the magnitude of your vision. All right, step 4. Time to ask what's working. Now that we've reestablished the importance of this goal, and we know where we're at in the journey of achieving it because we've tracked our progress, let's make a plan to get it done. So I want you to ask yourself two questions: what's working and what's not working? The second's a harder question. Be brutally honest with both of these questions. Are there issues standing in your way? If so, let's get to the root of that issue. So just keep asking why. If you have an issue, let's ask why. Let's come up with a reason. Okay, let's ask why again. Let's come up with a reason. Let's ask why again. Just keep asking why and go as deep as you can until you find the real root of your issue. So many times we think the issue is one thing and we're actually really surface level and we're blaming the wrong thing for the problem that we've identified. So just keep getting deeper. Once you go as deep as you can, you've asked why as many times as possible, and you think, no, this is actually the issue. I think I know what it is. Now it's time to address it. Are there milestones that you need to add to the goal in order to overcome the issue? Or do you need to add an entirely different goal in order to squash this issue that's standing in your way and accomplish the original goal? I also want you to be just as honest and just as brutally honest about what's working. It can be so much easier to be critical sometimes. It's hard to hear, but I think when we're looking at ourselves and our own progress, sometimes it's actually harder to acknowledge what we're doing really well. So ask that exact question. What are you doing really well? What habits are moving the needle on this goal in the right direction? What do you want to repeat or amplify moving forward that you're really proud of and is getting you results? Those questions are equally as important as figuring out what's not working and what issues are in your way. So once you've identified some of those items, you have a good idea of what you want to keep doing, what you need to quit doing, and any adjustments you might need to make. We're going to really solidify this plan to accomplish this goal the rest of the way. So for many of us, it's October. We are in the last quarter of the year for many businesses and many side hustles. We're in the last quarter of the tax year for most companies, and for any sole proprietors, we're definitely in that last quarter of the year. So I think for many of us, this plan is going to look like milestones to the end of our year, but it could be any time frame for your goal. So your goal might be have 6 more months left on that clock. Maybe this is a goal you're trying to achieve by April. It has nothing to do with the end of the year. That's okay. When we create our plan, we're going to lay out the timeline as well. So milestones are an excellent tool to ensure a goal will get done. I've used this word a couple times in this episode, but milestones are a way to really break down your goal, that big rock-sized goal, into little pebbles. So for example, if you have a goal of creating an in-person networking event for your online community, some examples of milestones might be to set a budget for the event, pick a venue and set a date, contract all the vendors, create promotional and invitation materials, send out your invitations, create a promotion and marketing calendar, host the event, and send a feedback survey to your community. Those probably aren't all of the milestones, but that's a good list for this example. So you're going to break down your goal just like that into larger action steps that often can also be turned into to-dos. So your milestones can easily be placed on a to-do list or broken down into a few steps that are going to get that milestone done. Milestones should always have deadlines attached to them. So with each of those milestones I gave, we're going to set a date that it has to be done or a date range that we're accomplishing that milestone in. Really take this time to evaluate the time period you want to achieve your goal and work to fit the milestones within that time frame. This is also a good moment to give yourself maybe a little reality check sometimes. So I tend to try and fit way too much into a given time period. I have always had this problem. I think I can accomplish everything, and darn if I won't try and lose all the sleep to do it. But that's not necessarily what's good for me. And I'm beginning to learn that. So what you want to do in laying out these milestones is going to give you a picture really quickly of, oh, actually, I can't achieve this goal in a month and a half. That's crazy. It's physically impossible to order the invitations that I need in that amount of time. They won't even be here. So there's no way I can host the event in that amount of time. You're going to have these reality checks when you lay out those goals. And it's okay if you don't quite fit in the timeline you originally imagined. It's okay to expand that timeline in order to keep your goal realistic, which is a very important part of goal setting. It has to be realistic or you're setting yourself up for failure. So if we decide, we look at these milestones and go, there is no way I can host this event in a month and a half, then let's reset the goal. And let's say, okay, I've laid out the milestones and I can host this event in 3 months. Perfect. Now we have a realistic timeline for this goal that we can really put the pedal to the metal and work to do. Also want to make sure to set a schedule to hold yourself accountable. So this is where I referenced this early in the episode. Think about how often you want to be giving yourself kind of these accountability checks. Not necessarily a full goal check-in like we are outlining right now, but maybe a weekly check-in. That would be what I would recommend once a week, just to take a look at those goals, take a look at those upcoming milestones, review your to-do list, maybe collect a little data so that you have that scorecard at the ready the next time you do a goal check-in. It's a great time to update those metrics and really make sure that you're on track. You can also, in this plan, set your next goal check-in. Mark it on your calendar so you know when you're repeating this process. So let's say that you're doing a goal check-in on October 15th. Say you're going to use this format and you're going to do a goal check-in at the end of this week. Then you might want to say, okay, I'm going to follow the steps in these goals. I'm going to work to accomplish these milestones, and I'm going to check in on my goals in another 3 months after the new year. Then let's go ahead and put on our calendar that we're going to do another goal check-in on January 2nd or January 6th or whatever that date is. Mark it on the calendar. Finally, now that you have gone through this process, which can be a lot of effort, but I promise is extremely fruitful, you have good data in front of you, you've checked in on your success, you've oriented to your why, you have thought about what's working, what's not working, you've made a plan. The last step is to visualize that success. So we're going to go back to something Mel said back in episode 13 when you were originally setting your goals. Now it's time to re-visualize that success. Think about what success looks like. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What are you wearing in that scenario? Really visualize every aspect you can of what it's going to look like when you accomplish this goal. The last thing I want you to do to really help you visualize your success is to post those goals and milestones that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Post them back up somewhere you can see them. Put them somewhere you're seeing them all the time, and it's going to be really easy to check back in on them so you can keep visualizing where you're going. If you really want to take this to the next level, I would say go ahead and build a vision board that you're also seeing so you're recurringly seeing the ultimate vision that these goals are working you towards. Mine's posted right next to me. You can see it on this side of my desk in that frame. It is right there where I see it all the time. Give yourself ways to stay energized and visualize where you're headed. Thank you so much for listening in on this episode with me today as we check in on our goals as we head into this last quarter of the year. We cannot wait for next week's episode, and we really are looking forward to talking with you again soon as we continue to help you overcome your fears and chase your dreams. Subscribe to Imposter Women wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Subscribing will keep you from missing an episode, and it helps to grow the podcast. We also hope that you will send us your weekly win and tell us what you're learning along the way and how your goals are going. See you on the next episode of Imposter Women.